once I had a business going, I started drinking a lot with guys in my business that were like
Mm.
30 years older than me and hanging out with them. And then at one point I had surgery and they gave me OxyContin and it was just
Oh,
lights out. From that point
oh,
on, it was just it's funny. I never thought I'd be a drug addict because I never even did a drug in high school, or college.
right.
I'm sure in college maybe I tried something, but I wasn't like really into that stuff. I was kind of a geeky kid. But the second I had that script for opioids, I remember being like, this is, I just, and I remember thinking a lot of people, I knew guys that would sell drugs and guys would have to give them a Rolex for one pill because he was so dope sick. And I used to think they were so weak. And then next thing I knew, I never thought I'd get hooked. I just thought I was too old. I would have got hooked by now. I would have been an alcoholic, right? And next thing I knew, it was lights out and it was never the same.
This is the Knocking Doors Down podcast for those who look to be inspired by individuals who have turned their lives around, be it from the depths of addiction, trauma, physical and mental health issues, and found a way to live a purposeful life. Because that's what Knocking Doors Down is all about. And if you have yet to subscribe to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Set the bell to get alerts for all the content that's published here on the channel. And while you're at it, please leave a thumb up and a comment on what you got out of this conversation. And if you're getting value out of Knocking Doors Down, please do me a favor, share with someone else. And I'm excited for this episode, as I am all of them. I am speaking with an awesome gentleman, Ryan Skinner of Cracking the Code. Cracking the Code is all about helping individuals find financial prosperity. Through Ryan's addiction recovery, he's explored his passion of helping others who have struggled with depression, anxiety, and addiction prosper in life. Ryan and I discuss doing for others and wanting nothing in return, and that is the gift. Why it's so important when you prosper, especially financially, that you have to give back to help others. Also, why does Ryan find complete fulfillment and purpose in lighting the path for others so that the world can be a better place? And we discuss, much like gravity, spiritual principles apply to everyone. We converse about all that and so much more on this episode of Knocking Doors Down. Welcoming to Knocking Doors Down, Ryan Skinner from Cracking the Code. How you doing, good sir?
How you doing, my friend?
I'm well. Other than as our recording, we're both struggling with the sniffles here, so don't
Oh my
feel so
God.
bad.
I force
uh,
myself to go to work every day.
That's right. Hey, and we're going to get into that because it's a gentleman that's a mentor of mine, Mike Diamond. He always says, and this has stuck with me, successful people do the work no matter how they feel. Unsuccessful people do the work when they feel like it.
It's true. That's true. I mean, it's well put too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, you've hit a few episodes. You know my MO, gratitude. Three things you're grateful for today. That's where we're starting.
Rob connected us, my daughter, and I was able to be there. I had clients just come in whose son died of an overdose, and I was able to be there for him. And literally they just came in at 12:30. I thought they were forgot they were coming in, and so came in at 9:30 your time, and I saw them and I just talked to the lady, and she's like, I just I want to come and see you. We don't have to go over our finances. I just need to see you, and I was just grateful I could be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the Rob you're referring to, Dr. Rob Kelly, good dude. And yeah, that let me ask you about that because you're just over 12 years clean at this point.
Yeah, originally I got sober about 12 years ago. I had a setback a while back, and I was lucky
Mm.
enough. And then I ended up meeting Rob like early on, and he was just a game changer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Well, let me ask you about that being of service to other people. I mean, I don't know. I never saw myself being the guy that people were going to call after, sadly, unfortunately, as you losing someone or, hey, man, I'm struggling and I'm the person you're reaching out to. It's still a little bit odd to me, even, with long-term sobriety.
Yeah, I mean that's the gifts I think is when somebody once said to me, "What you can do for other people that don't benefit you." When there's nothing to come back to, what can you do? What do you do for other people? And I'll be honest, when she showed up there, I got a stomach ache because here's this lady, she's a client, she's a nice client, but I'm nervous. I hadn't seen her since her son overdosed last 2 weeks ago, and then I thought to myself, you know what? I remember my mother crying. Somebody called when I was in jail to listen to my mother cry, and I just sat down with her.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard, but we developed the tools, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it's all about. And being in recovery is all about service. And you learn really early on that until you have service to other people, you're not going to feel the benefits. I mean, that's
Yeah.
when you start feeling, they talk about the 9-step promise and stuff like that. The good stuff comes when you start being a service to other people because you see the lights come on in their eyes. And it's easy when you're trying to sponsor somebody, you see the lights come on because that's a gift, right? You help pull
Right.
somebody from the gates of hell. But when you're walking into somebody who's sitting in hell and you have to be there, I mean, I got called a month and a half ago. My buddy works for a funeral home. He's like, these parents, the husband, the boyfriend and girlfriend jumped in front of a train because he couldn't do it anymore. The parents are in so much pain. Can you come down and talk to them? Like, what do you want me to say? And I just showed up,
Right.
and it worked itself out. And there are other times where I won't know what to say, but I'll know who to bring. And that's the gift too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, talking about Dr. Rob, and we're talking about other people that we know through this recovery thing, and that it really is like, I think when you work it, if you're someone that really does, that you just find so many connections to people that I don't know, it's just mysterious, man.
I always say this, and I can't really explain it. I don't know a whole lot about how DNA all falls in, but you see the DNA pictures, how the strands are tied together.
Yeah.
I believe there's some sort of strand, call it the universe, God, whatever it is, that people get on the same frequency and people cross your path and you're supposed to be a service to them. And it doesn't make sense. Half the people I'm friends with, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I know guys that sit down, people come in, half my clients. I mean, I have 15 clients that are cops that have arrested me at one point or another. I mean, none of it makes sense, but it's this sort of like serendipitous flow to life that just in the end kind of makes sense, I think. I hope.
Yeah. Well, and that's the trip of it too, been arrested and now doing stuff working with like the local sheriff's department and
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, did this present an opportunity too for you to maybe make amends to people that you wanted to, but you didn't know how? Like you just didn't have access to them, or I mean, we get
I've been able
so
to
many weird
make, I mean,
things.
some of the stuff you make living amends, obviously, if certain people are gone and you do it by changing your attitude. And if that situation comes, you do different things. It's funny, one of my cops that are clients, he's now the chief, and he gave me the ability to go back and make an amends to another cop that had done something, wrong to. And I'll tell you, it was pretty freeing because the guy was like, I didn't realize it mattered to him. And he's like, it
Yeah.
does matter to me. He goes, only because you're friends with the chief, you're friends with this guy. You walk around this place like you own the joint, and yet you got away with an A and B on me. And we had this bad altercation, and now you apologize, and now I don't want to avoid you when you're in here. And I was like, wow, like I had no idea this guy felt uncomfortable at his own job. I actually was hoping to bump into him there so I could have done it on my own, but he was avoiding me. And you just don't know how things flow.
Yeah. Well, and I found too that, did you ever have any situations like this? I've made some really good amends with people, and they're like, "Yeah, all right, man." And they're like, "Well, I just had to get that off my chest. Like, we were cool all along. There's no issue. Like, are you sure?" And they're like, "Well, thanks. I know it matters to you, and I'm glad that I could be here." So sometimes it's even the unload that we need for ourselves too, that maybe that other person, it doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have a cousin who's my age. We grew up in the same house, and he's a state trooper, and I'm, me. And I remember making him this to him. He's like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "Well, I didn't show up at your wedding. I didn't even respond." He's like, "Yeah, no, it's all good. I feel you're going through something." And I'm like, "Yeah, but And he's like, "Right, honestly, we're good." And I have one that's funny. I made this amends to this guy. I said, "Listen, I'm really sorry, but that doesn't cut it. Sorry doesn't when it comes down to what I would do. If I could do it over, I would do it differently. You deserve better than what I gave you. If there's anything I can do to make it right, let me know." He goes, "Man, I just want to see you dead." I was like, "Man, that was the only bad one I ever had." But yeah,
Well, and that's the other reality we get is um I was talking, is Brandon Novak dropped me this on me. He was saying um it what the what other people end up thinking about me. How do you say it? So much more eloquent than is coming out from me. We both have head colds for the listener and watcher. We're struggling through this here. Um, like at the end of the day, what the other people think about you is none of your fucking business. Like,
I've heard that a million times, and I've come to accept that. If people don't like me, I don't really give.
yeah,
If it affects my business, I get worried. If
sure.
it my ability to provide for my child, as we talked about. But other than that, people's opinion of me, I can roll out just because I've had to get there. I've had so many people that their opinion owned me when I was in early recovery, and it was so much a part of my identity. And my sponsor said just like that, he goes, "It's not business. He goes, they don't
Mhm.
like you, who cares? He goes, they do like you. Don't let it inflate your ego. Who cares? I was
Yeah.
like, "Yes."
It's one and the same, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be, but it's not that easy.
No,
You know what I
it's
mean?
not. Well, because we have the people that we love and we want them to, love to be reciprocated and the friendship and camaraderie and things like that. And then we have other people that it's no matter what, it's not going to click. Like you said, that double helix of DNA, there's just nothing's going to resonate.
Yeah. And I think there's just some people that aren't supposed to be in your vortex of life. And I've come to accept that. I've come not to try to pull them in anymore. Whereas before I would try to make things okay.
Yeah. Well, and I'm with you on the as far as affecting businesses, I've the only situations I can think of in recent history where I've maybe contacted someone that it felt like the loop was closed, so to speak, like, you're not in my life anymore and I'm not in yours and it's for good reason, has been connected to that. Like, look, I don't talk about you in any regards, not one way or the other. Please understand that when you go out there and you talk shit or whatever, like my reputation here is I help people in this community. And
Yeah.
you by saying things that are personal to you and putting a blanket statement about me and the service work I'm doing, it screws with the opportunity to maybe help someone that it could be saving their life.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine who was a recovery coach down in Florida and he just moved back here. And his ex-wife would go around telling people he's still drinking and stuff. I mean, he was clearly not drinking. This guy, when he drank, you knew. Um, but she just wanted to take every chance she could to take a shot at him, and it hurt his business.
Yeah, it's shitty to do. Let
That
me
is,
ask let me ask you about little Ryan because it's always intriguing to me how we get to where we did. You mentioned living with a cousin growing up. I mean, what was childhood like? What were you like growing up?
I was such a shy, insecure geek. It's funny. Recently, a buddy of mine ran into some girls that I worked at a bar with in college, and they said, yeah, he asked, he's like, "What was Ryan like?" Because he didn't know me back then, and he thought they were gonna say he was a lunatic. He was this. They're like, he was a cute kid, nice kid. He was so shy though and geeky, he couldn't even talk to girls. And I was like 20, and it was true. And they were also talking about somebody else I worked with at the same bar, and they were like, "Well, yeah," and they had a million bad stories about that individual. They had nothing bad to say, but the truth is, I was just a shy, geeky kid. I mean, in high school, I went to dances only when girls asked me. Like, I hate, and I don't know what happened in my 20s. I think I just looked at it like the law of numbers. Like, who cares? It doesn't matter. And I stopped caring.
Yeah,
But man, when I was a kid, I was afraid of I had anxiety. I was just afraid of my own shadow.
yeah. Well, did for me it was home life that did that. I grew up in the home of an addict, and there was a lot of it wasn't. I mean, I hate to compare it. Like my father wasn't violent. There was times of yelling and then being sweet, or just really moody, or the disappearing act, or things like that felt less than loving. But yeah, it's interesting how that can roll out for us into our adulthood. Because I even told myself as a teenager, I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs. I was a guy, if I went to a party, I got the drunk people home,
Yeah.
that I wasn't going to go down that path. But when you saying like that 20 years old, 21, it was like, same thing. There's just like a fuck it switch went off, and like, oh, I have a couple drinks, all of a sudden I'm a little more charming, and then I talked to the hot girl and woke up in her apartment the next day.
Yeah. And that's just it. In high school, I was a guy who held one beer the whole party. In college, I drank. When I drank, the thing I learned in college was when I drank, I didn't know when I'd stop. So if we went out on a Thursday night, I didn't know if I'd be going to work Friday. So I didn't drink a whole ton. And then after college, I was so focused on building my business, and I was driven on financial security. I mean, I was so worried. I want to grow. I want to have a business. Once I had a business going, I started drinking a lot with guys in my business that were like
Mm.
30 years older than me and hanging out with them. And then at one point, I had surgery and they gave me OxyContin, and it was just
Oh,
lights out. From that point
oh,
on, it was just it's funny. I never thought I'd be a drug addict because I never even did a drug in high school, college.
right.
I'm sure in college maybe I tried something, but I wasn't like really into that stuff. I was kind of a geeky kid. But the second I had that script for opioids, I remember being like, and I remember thinking a lot of people, I knew guys that would sell drugs, and guys would have to give them a Rolex for one pill because he was so dope sick. And I used to think they were so weak. And then next thing I knew, I never thought I'd get hooked. I just thought I was too old. I would have got hooked by now. I would have been an alcoholic, right? And next thing I knew, it was lights out, and it was never the same.
Wow. And I've heard that so many times. Knocking Doors Down by Carlos Vieira, now available wherever you get audiobooks.
I wasn't done partying, and I didn't want the binge to end. I think I knew that when I finally got home, I'd have to face what I had done, and I wasn't ready to do that. Being responsible for my actions wasn't something I was looking forward to. I had abandoned my wife and baby, my family, and my business. I wanted to avoid the shame of returning to what I had left behind. Even though I was not yet going home, I wasn't sure I had enough resources to continue the binge.
Click the link in the podcast description to find out more. I don't know about you. I mean, I have people that struggled with opioids, and even now they can have a drink here and there. Like I got a buddy, he had a couple of drinks at his wedding, and that's all he had that year. But when he had an injury and got prescribed opioids, it destroyed his life, and he ended up on the streets for a good 6, 7 years.
Yeah, opioids took my soul. Everyone says you don't think you go out and have a drink safely. And my answer is I don't want to find out.
It's
I just don't want to
yeah,
find out. Not once kids come into play, it's no longer about you. It's about kids. You have
yeah,
kids.
yeah. Well, how long? So you got an injury, got the opioids. How long was the run with that?
It was weird because at first they were I had tumors in my stomach, and then when those were done, they were like, "Oh, we're gonna wean you off." And at that point, I'd saved some money, because I had my own business. I had a couple of houses, a couple of cars. Honestly, within a year or two after that, I had nothing. I remember going to jail and be like, "This isn't that bad." That's the honest to God truth. I went to jail and I remember thinking maybe this is where it stops, and then going to treatment after, and then slowly rebuilding it. And it was hard. It was hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, we're people need to wake up if you're not already to what the opioid crisis has led to. I mean, look at what we're going through with fentanyl, and we're going to hit another high once the data comes out for 2023 of overdose death rates. It's now the number one killer in the world, and it all spawned out of the opioid crisis.
Of course,
Yeah.
it's crazy to me. It's amazing to me that they knew what they were putting out there. That's the crazy part.
And it's so disheartening that because the Sacklers still have never really paid. People go, oh, they paid hundreds of millions of dollars. They're living comfortably somewhere in Europe with tons of
That's
money
just
in the
it.
bank.
And that's the thing I think of is somebody said to me, "Oh, you blame your doctor. It's a doctor's fault." I mean, the doctor really didn't know any more than I knew. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, maybe a little bit, probably not though. I don't think doctors maliciously were giving out medicine to hurt people. I mean, there's obviously pill farms, but I look at it like that family, like, they literally went out there knowing what they were cranking out. And the only good thing about it is before that, at least where I lived, it was the inner city people that had heroin problems, and they were like, and almost like they didn't matter.
Hmm.
And I didn't come from money. My mom was a housekeeper. We, you know, middle class at best. But the reality was, it was the people, different races in a city, blah blah blah. So the only good thing is it shined a light on it and said, hey, it doesn't discriminate. Like,
Hmm.
so long, people looked away because it didn't hit them. So I think that's probably the only positive is now it's being looked at.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, well, you and I are, I'm a little older than you, but yeah, well, I mean, we grew up with the kids as kids on the news and the crack epidemic, and they always showed a black guy in Detroit and the
Yeah.
downtrodden area. And it was like, oh my goodness, this is just destroying, our African American communities and everything else. Like, no, the shit is everywhere, destroying everyone. And hopefully that light has been more shed now.
Yeah, it seems like it out here, but I mean, then again, there's also a place out this area. It's the same as Skid Row. It's like you can't get on the street because you get pulled out of your car, robbed. It's insane. So
Hmm.
still a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Oh my God. Let me ask you about your recovery process then. What was kind of when you went in? I mean, how were they weaning you off? I don't think Suboxone was around then. I don't
It
remember
was
them.
around, but they weren't giving it to you jail. They weaned you off. They put you in a cell and you twitched. I mean,
Oh,
you know.
so you did it the very painful way.
Yeah, you sit there. I think it was like 26 days without sleeping, and I mean, I like be droopy, but I wasn't sleeping, and it was a run. It was a tough go, and then through the grace of God, it got easier.
Yeah. Oh, oh, Ryan.
I don't think I would have learned the lesson if it wasn't a hard lesson. Some people learn lessons easily. I'm just not that bright. I have to learn it the hard way.
Right.
Good thing is it's made everything else in life seem a lot easier since, you know?
Right? Yeah, if I can go through that, like, what is this? Yeah, this is nothing. Oh, shit, howdy. Well, you mentioned your mom being a housekeeper. Does that mean dad wasn't present?
No, my parents were together. They
Okay.
both, my mom cleaned houses during the day, offset at night. My dad always had two jobs. They just worked hard to give us a life. They had to work hard. They didn't have a lot of, they weren't super well-educated people and stuff. So they just did what they had to do.
Now, do you ever at any point through your recovery reflect back on I know for me, I had to do a lot of childhood examination and really kind of understand where I come from. And you had said something about, that desperation or desire with the, being financially well off. And I can relate to that. I still struggle with that, to be honest. Like people like, dude, your workload's insane. It's like, I don't know how else to be. I've got two kids. I got a beautiful lady in my life. We got a car payments, house payments, just had to buy some new appliances, all this stuff. It's like I don't know how else to be. Do you think like that seeing that in your parents, the dad with two jobs, the mom, the house cleaner, that really instilled that in you?
Well, then still, my mother really gave me my work ethic. She's probably the hardest worker I know.
Hmm.
And the drive to not be in a financial tough spot growing up, like if you'd want Air Jordans, you can get Air Jordans, we don't have the kind of money. So I remember thinking there was a guy I idolized. And this guy was like, he's a rock star. He was a good looking guy, had a swagger about him. He actually brought me into my business. And his kid had everything. We went to school together. He bought his kids everything. Looking back, his kids grew up, they don't even talk now. And this guy ended up screwing up his marriage. He drank too much, was out doing the wrong thing. And the funny part is I looked up to him and I ended up emulating him. I pretty much did the same stuff, made all the same mistakes. And then, so when I was younger, I didn't want to be broke, and I wanted to make sure I could breathe financially and this and that. And then when I got hooked on drugs, I wasn't working at all. I blew it all. And that's that. When I came back around this time, I realized like I had a talent. Like I realized that most guys in the financial industry aren't capable of doing what I do. And like we probably just put systems in place. Once I learned how to put systems in place, the same spiritual laws of gravity, like that or anything else you do, it works the same. So if you put a spiritual principle in place into a business world, you're going to have success. If you really do the right thing, you make God your partner, or the energy of the world, or whatever you want to call it, higher power. You partner up with that and you pay it forward. Like I do a ton of charity work. Like I always make sure if we're not giving 6 figures away a year, then we're not doing something right. Because I was there. You know what I mean? I was on the other side of this. I was the guy who somebody had to bring socks to. And as a result, that drive though is now that I know how to do, I'm like, oh, I can do this and that. Same like you. Like, well, I get these expenses. I want to give this much to this charity and this much. So, and I never want to say no. So it's just boom, boom. It's like it feeds itself. So I don't know how to slow down. Like, I mean, I burned through a marriage because I put it before work before it. But I was honest when we got married. Work comes first. The only thing I'm pretty good about slowing down for is if you get the opportunity when I'm with my daughter, and my stepdaughter, I can put the pause button when I'm with them, but I don't put things on hold much. I mean, I'm a workaholic. I mean, listen, tomorrow's the last day before Christmas. I'll be here. The day after Christmas, I'll be here. It's what I do.
Yeah. I know.
That's what I tell people. It's what I do. And that's my answer. And it's like take it or leave it type thing.
And don't tell me if this lands with you. This is how I am. Like I'm 45. My addiction definitely, I worked in radio for 20 years. That's not a huge income industry. Granted, I was near the top of it. And even then, like people, like if you looked at the salary, it's like, Jesus, man, for all the work you do. I'm like, yes, I know I get paid about $5 an hour. But like I found something that I love. And once I got sober, and came out of it as like, oh my God, I put so much work and I'm so blessed to do something that I love. Like I know that I will meet my creator again someday. I just have to do it.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how else to be, and it's hard. And I want to pick your brain about that, being able to separate, because it's still tough for me at moments, the phone's going off or what, oh, I got to post this social media clip or whatever the heck it is. And, but I don't know how else to be. especially when, how many people get in life to go, wow, I love what I do.
Yeah. I mean, I can say this. You nailed something that made me think back. When I was first out of jail, I was in this pre-release place, and I used to be able to walk. It was about a 2 mile walk because I had no money for the subway. And I had these old sandals, but I would walk down to this park when my friend worked at a hot dog stand. He'd give me 2 hot dogs and a soda free, and that was my lunch. And I remember walking by my cousin one day, and he works in finance, and we were on this nice street in Boston, Newbury Street, which is like as nice as it gets. And he was probably 3 feet away, and he didn't even recognize me. My teeth were smashed out because I got stabbed in the mouth. I'm in a tracksuit, like I just looked like a slob. And I mean, I still wear tracksuits, but I don't now. These ones fit.
No.
No. So, but I mean, and he didn't even recognize me. I'm walking by these people. I thought, wow, one day I was actually part of society. I was a finance guy. I wore nice suits. I just want that back. And so now I get it back. And now here I am, like, I'm doing well in my industry, and I'm back doing something I love, and I'm seeing people helping them retire. And that's what led me to want to get on the coaching field with it was that a financial advisor would call me like, how are you doing this? Like, you're doing 10 times what we're doing, and you're not even polished. And it's because it's passion, because it's the it. Like everybody has an it. And if you're doing your it, you're gonna find a way. If you're trying to be a service, like your job, you're a service. You help people get better. As a result, of course, you're gonna have success. Because your creator wants you to have success, because then you have success, you can do more to help other people. If you're not having success, then you're useless to him.
Yeah. Well, and you said it right there. Like my total belief is I struggled with not the God part of recovery that people often, I find so many people like, hey, hit a 12-step meeting with me. I don't believe in God, or I'm not religious. I've heard it all. Like, hey, I was baptized Catholic, went to Catholic school. Guess what? I wasn't either, and definitely not religious, but I do believe in a higher power. And it took me a while to accept that there was a creator, God, higher power, whatever it is, that not only loved me, but could work through me. And that's part of my daily routine is that belief in that. And again, to me, it's not only, I don't know how else not to work hard, but I don't know how to say anything like it's how I know I'm of service. And so I take that so damn seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. Next week, the kids are on school vacation. My soon-to-be ex-wife is saying, well, you should take some more time off the kids. You want to be with them. And I do. But I had a client call. They're worried about buying a property. They want to see some numbers and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'll meet you this time. I'll meet you this time. And I'll make it all work. But I don't know how to say no. There was a day where I was begging for that phone to ring.
Right.
Now it rings nonstop. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this is awesome. Like, I have enough business that I can just turn business away and go into the coaching. I don't make nearly as much. Rob
Yeah.
last. I mean, I'd be lucky to make a third doing that if I get it off the ground and going well when I stop peaking with it. The finance business is doing great, but I also believe that like there's so many other guys that are in my industry or want to be in my industry that struggle needlessly. Like, how many people do you meet that do what you do? They're struggling. Like, if you would just take this suggestion, you would do well. And it's kind of nice to be part of that. It's kind of nice to give back. I mean, especially with the recovery, what you guys do. I mean, that's unbelievable because
Yeah.
that has more of an impact.
I, I wouldn't compare them. It's apples to oranges. I mean, think about the
Yeah.
impact of maybe I don't know. This is just how my brain works. You help someone. Maybe it was the lady that came that unfortunately lost her son, and now all of a sudden you help them be in so much of a better financial place, and they start volunteering or giving to a charity that brings people off the streets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I
you
think
never know where it's going to flow. It's true. And, and,
yeah.
and, and it all happens for a reason. It really does. Because I'm going to be honest, I didn't have time to get her in today. And like I said to her, I'm like, I'm on a podcast at 1:30 because if I said 1:45, I would have never got her on time. I'm like, but I can fit in at 12:30 and man, I'm so glad I did. Because she walked out of here, she was smiling. She goes, maybe I'll go buy my grandkids. I said, go see your grandkids. It'll light you up a little. She goes, maybe I'll go buy my grandkids and make some Christmas cookies. I go, there you go. I go, what are you going to do? Go home and want to throw darts at yourself? What do you mean?
Is that a Boston thing? Throw darts at
No,
yourself?
but I mean, as Buster Bowski, she said something about, like I need a dot for it. And I was like, you can throw dots at yourself. I think it's just, we never know what role we're playing in people's lives. That's for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's that. I struggled so much before really working my recovery because I had a couple stints. I would do about a year and a half and then go back out. And then I do a little over a year again, go back out. I'm actually in my longest run of continual sobriety. I got about 7 years totally continuous, and I'm coming up on my 3 year in February.
What do you think
And
the difference was this time?
I realized, because I've been doing this is the 4th season, that I was making this my recovery, and I got arrogant, and I think it was a greater awareness. Plus I had a situation of really taking a look in the mirror at, boy, I'm just like, I needed people to love me, and it was keeping people in my life that were never going to. And so once I decided I'm going to change my accessibility, and for some people it's going to become 0, that was a game changer. You know, I'm a born people pleaser. It's my greatest
Most
character.
of us are, to be honest.
Yeah, but greatest character defect. So once I did that, and I really dug in a way that I never had before, and I literally made a list that, like, and the top one was find multiple mentors that had what I want, and people that maybe not in recovery always go, well, that sounds really selfish or nefarious. No. I don't want to have their life or be them or take their stuff or their wife or whatever. Meaning their spirituality, their sense of self, like really pick their brain. And it was a couple of people that it was a little lofty, but oddly they're in my life now. They're like they went from indirect to direct mentors. I mean, you know, Dr. Rob was one of those people, Dr. Rob Kelly, that definitely was there to help me. And then, you know, this gentleman, Adam Jablin, and Mike Diamond, and these other people. And once they saw how serious I was, they gave of their time, and it made all the difference. Have you dug into the archives of past Knocking Doors Down podcast episodes? The Knocking Doors Down podcast archive is available to you for free. Check it out. Here's a snippet from when Charlie Sheen was on the podcast.
AA is not the best place for a famous atheist. I kept looking for that fucking chapter. What, you know? So yeah, but it's not a one size fits all.
Sure.
You know, it's like saying that we all think the same, like our brains are built the same. They're just not.
Right.
Yeah.
There's such uniqueness involved.
Check out this episode and so many more in the Knocking Doors Down archive. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumb up, leave a comment, and share with somebody else that you know will get value out of the Knocking Doors Down podcast. What about you? I mean, you said you had a slip up at some point. I mean, how
So,
do you care to touch on it?
Yeah, it was so about, help me out with these. Because I was going to say 4 years, probably about 7 years ago, 6 years ago. No, 4 years ago, I went through a work thing where I've always had an issue with somebody, a regulator in my industry, like somebody who has kind of pull. It started as a personal thing in my 20s, and every 2 years they just bust my cookies, and they give you a hard time. And I went out, one of them just took me right out. My daughter was just born. I just felt like I couldn't provide. I was a disaster. And then at one point I realized, like, it's going to stop. And Rob and I connected. And then that was a start. I'd already started, but that was like when I started like feeling healthy again, you know, having somebody mentor me like that. I've been very lucky. So I've had Rob as a mentor. He's helped me with the coaching, getting that off the ground, some of the speaking. Another friend of mine, Marcus Ogden, he's great, does a lot of public speaking. He's a former pro football player, good kid. And he's a great friend of mine. So he helps me. I mean, we talk all the time. And then there's other guys, like this guy in my business who's been mentoring me for years. He was actually on my podcast yesterday. I mean, these guys are my age, and it's just silly money. I said to him the other day, I want your money. I just don't want to do your work, because he has to pay 250 people plus deal with people like me. I have like a lot of good people in my life. You know, I really do. And I think to myself, these people, you know, my mother said something once, it rang a bell. I said, Mike, you ever notice some of the clients that been with me like 15, 20 years? We don't have any came on board like 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, but we have some from 15, 20 years that were real. She goes, yeah, water seeks its own level. You were an and it's true. Like the people I attracted were just, I mean, somewhat nice, but it's just like the last 10, 12 years, whatever. It's even like when I went through a tough time, but people I was attracted to, good clients. Like, they're people that genuinely I go get a bite to eat with. I'm friends. I've gone to breakups and been in there through breakups and been at their kitchen table in tears. You know what I mean? Like in my
Yeah.
30s, like I remember it's just different. And having good mentors has been like the key to everything.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how freely somebody will give of their time. Like my buddy coming on the podcast yesterday, he's not worth like small money. This guy's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and just comes on, just casually sits in, just shoots the shit. And my buddy's, my producer's like, Zach, man. I was like, yeah. And he's like, he just doesn't give a shit. He's like, I was like, we're friends. I mean, we built a relationship, and you see that they get fulfillment, kind of like when you sponsor somebody. You just get fulfillment when they do well. And a good mentor. I mean, I've got that's where I coach other advisors and other guys in business. I don't make nearly. I make maybe 10% of what I make, put an hour and do what I do. But man, when I see some guy who was making 100 grand make like 240, and then the next year his kid, like one guy, his kid had certain challenges, dyslexic, and his income went up enough the next year that he was able to put him in a school around here that's really good for dyslexia, and he was thrilled, you know, and he was psyched. And I was like, oh my God, I played a small role in that. It's a small role. It's God working through us, but it's still a role.
Yeah. And for me, you're right. Like with the mentors, it showed me it lit the pathway that it's not BS, that you can help the world be a better place, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think when we're younger, you kind of get jaded, especially when you're using like, oh, this, so like, where the hell's God? And this is all a big scam, and the rich get richer, and this. But then the day comes, you're like, you know what? There's some sort of like stream of life, and if I can just contribute to it in some small way, maybe even if I don't get better, even if I don't get what I want out of life, maybe I'll feel better.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, when you do that for a while, you start getting a lot of the things you want because you're not obsessed with this. You're not blocking. I feel like if you're thinking about things, you're blocking them. If I'm thinking about me, I'm really fucking things up. Excuse my language, but I am. There's nothing good that comes out of me thinking about me. If I'm trying to help somebody out or be of service or just be kind, you know, somehow things go my way. And it's kind of a selfish thing. I kind of do it for that reason now. Like, hey, if I just do something for somebody else, it'll work out. In a bad way, I literally get on my phone and start calling random people that I know might be having a hard time and just listen to them. And then like next thing I know, I'm like, Jesus, my life's, it's all right. You know, I had a good conversation with him and I talked to him, and, you know, I don't know.
What is it saying? Sorrow shared cuts it in half. Joy shared doubles it.
It's true.
It
It's
is.
true.
And it's weird. Like it's all stuff that when we're younger, that's like, no way, piss off. Like, you know.
So true. The stuff our mothers told us, I used to think it was bullshit. You'll be kind. So like, screw you. And like, you know, she used to say to me, you know, I can't buy you Michael Jordans, but I gave you God. And I used to be like, I just want sneakers. Like, I don't. And I'll tell you, when I got in jail, they weren't giving me Michael Jordans. I was glad I had God. You know,
Right.
holy place.
That's funny you bring that up. This buddy of mine, Tony Hoffman, who when I had my slip up was one of the people that was there for me at 2:00 in the morning. And he found God in prison. And now through all of his speaking, he's a sneakerhead, and he's got literally the rows of the Jordans, and it's weird, you know. It's like, oh, the stuff that I like or wanted, and then once I stop focusing on it, all of a sudden I have the means to do so, and it's just
Crazy.
like, what? That's not how it's supposed to work.
I know. You think you're supposed to focus on, be obsessed, work hard. No, you're supposed to just set a goal, go be of service, and the details follow.
Yeah.
I used to think.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, me as a guy that I always loved sports and like looking back on certain people, like I was so thankful for the documentary, The Last Dance for the Bulls, because you really got Michael Jordan's mindset, and you're like, he wasn't really obsessed with winning and losing per se, but he sure was obsessed with not having a chink in his armor.
Yeah, you know, you say that, it's funny. So I gave a couple of workshops last week, right? And I have these Jordan things on the wall, these quotes of Jordan in my wall, in my gym, in my basement, at my house, and I have it in my office. And the workshop, I usually book half the room. I didn't book. I couldn't close the door that night, and I wasn't good that night, but I wasn't bad. But no one booked. I'm like, son of a bitch, you know, like 10 grand down the drain, blah blah. And I read that quote, and it said, you know, I missed 9,000 shots. I missed boom boom, and I'm like, you know what? I failed tonight, so I can be better later, and I'll work on it. And that night, I rehearsed my seminar at midnight. And that's the thing. You have to be obsessive about your craft, whatever it is. When people say, well, how do you do this well giving workshops? Easy. I'm obsessive. Like when we go on events and we're on like for at work, we're at these conferences, people going out drinking. And I've got the kid who's really good at coaching. I've got him in a conference room at midnight, not letting him sleep until he watches and rehearses and critiques me. Whatever it is I want to do, like I work out like a nut when I work out because I want to do everything I do well.
Mhm.
And some people can't understand that. And I think that's where I'm probably on this autism spectrum myself, because most people, like I knew when I got married, I told my ex, I was like, listen, I can focus on work, like bringing in money. I'm nice. I'm a good time when I'm a good time, but I can't do like, I might leave a mess around the house with clothes. Like I'm just not like organized. I mean, my staff goes nuts. I mean, I could probably run this place myself if I could stay out of my own way, but I got 5 staff members and literally they're still stressed. And I remember the Jordan quote, and it helped me because in the last year, so I'm very lucky. Have you ever heard of George Mumford?
Yes.
So George is a good friend of mine. So
Okay.
I kind of got an inside track on the Jordans and the Kobe's of the world, and he talks about these golfers that he coaches. I just don't care. But like he talks about Manchester United players. I'm like, I don't care. Like, if you could just stay on Jordan and Kobe, we're all right. And but like the stuff he teaches me, he's like, he's just a nut. And that's the thing. People don't realize Jordan's got those championship rings. You think he's getting every leave? He doesn't give a about those now. They don't care. Like I mean, he's already on to like the golf and this. And then when he's fishing, like they said that some guy, I guess, was quoted saying he was fishing next to Jordan on a pier down in Miami or wherever he was. And Jordan wouldn't leave until he caught the fish. So he wait, everyone else up eating. He wasn't going to, he's just obsessive. So he gets no more relief than us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a nice thing to know, is to know that there's not supposed to be relief. Because when I think there's supposed to be relief, I look for relief.
Mhm.
When I realize that the relief comes in the process, like, like I said to you before we went on, these guys in my business are like, I'd love your house, or I'd like your cars and this and that. I'm like, all right, motherfucker, see me at 5 a.m. when I work it out. And then we'll
Right.
do periods, they'll do meditation, they'll do some journaling. And then we'll see our kids when they get up. But before they get out, we do all that. And they're looking at me like, yeah, I don't know if I want it that bad.
Oh yeah. No, and that again, back to the mentors, the people that, we have a mutual person in Dr. Rob Kelly, and then, ask Dr. Rob, he's done a lot with Adam Jablin, and then Adam Jablin and Mike Diamond are really close. And I know that like Mike gets up in the morning between 3:30 and 4:30, and he's got a good hour and a half to 2 hours to get his mind right. That's the work that he does before he starts the day, because he'll even say it, he's a lunatic. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm kind of a lunatic. I got to do a better job of getting my mind right to be able to go through the day and not like, hopefully not shit all over the world. Okay.
Yeah. I always say I have to break myself in the morning. I torture myself so hard in my workout, and then my freezing cold shower, and like just torture myself. So that I try to do that enough to myself that the world can't go any further. You know what I mean? So no matter how tough the word, tough the world is that day, I've already just beat the hell out of myself. So it's not going to be any worse.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I get a pretty good day. But when I don't do that, like today, I get a cold. So I'm like, I'm not working out. Like first thing in the morning, I'll work out later. I'm not going to freeze a cold shower. I don't feel good. So I just put my head in the cold shower, just get some relief. But I thought to myself after, I'm like, maybe if I'd done that, Mike, because I came here and it was an easy day and I knew didn't have much. But if I had done that, it's a whole different day.
Yeah.
A whole different day.
Yeah. No, I was glad that I was talking to you and that I woke up really late today. Because it's like, okay, I'm talking with another person in recovery. It always puts me in a good mood,
It's easy.
Yeah, yeah. Especially on a friend referral too. And it's it's the ones where I meet them and it's like, oh, they're having a shit day too. This ain't gonna go too well.
Yeah, it's good if we get the same vibe, because frankly, you understand there's a lot of ups and downs. And I think it's a different language you speak, because you're combining work and business with spirituality.
Mm.
And, and I'll tell you, if I had to go be a heroin addict, be on the streets, go to jail to have what I have now, it was worth it.
Yeah.
It was worth it. I think the hardest thing was getting sober a second time without losing everything, because that was really hard, because the elevator keeps going down. So you got to choose when to get off, or the world chooses it for you when you lose everything. And I remember thinking, I got this little child with autism, and I can't let her have a bad life.
Yeah.
I can't lose everything she deserves.
Yeah.
It's God, it got me going.
I came to that that was part of my getting back on track too, was that realization that, oh man, my kids have seen me drunk. They have had me, I can think it was once, maybe twice, being so sick the next morning that hey guys, you're just going to stay home from school today. And it's like, how much did I let them down? And I can't let that keep going, because I went through that and I know what that pain is, and I know how that sits, and I know how that lands, and I need to become the person that I want to be, that not only doesn't let that happen again anymore, but is enough of a man now to let them know, hey, I'm available to talk about that. Like, if you need to process that, understand, get some relevance, help them get closure on these things, because I didn't get it till, God, last 3-4 years, not until in my 40s. And it's like, I've told them I don't want it to have to wait that long. It was a hindrance on my success. It always sat there in the background, and I don't want that for them.
We were never taught that we could go to them and talk about things. Like I had somebody in my life when I was growing up until about second grade that was abusive. I never thought, you just don't cry. I never was told you can go talk about it. How did that feel? Even when it came out after, it was like, nobody said, how do you feel about that? You okay? It was just kind of like, you're all right, right? And I'm like, guess so,
Yeah.
I think back, you said something about your kids. A real game changer was I was tucking my daughter in one night, and I was kneeling down. I used to kneel down next to her crib and pray. She said, Daddy, why are you falling asleep? And I was like, fuck. Because I wasn't falling asleep. I was nodding. And that's when it hit me. I'm like, you know what? This kid deserves better. And then when I look at my daughter, it's when we grew up, there was a kid that lived next door, my aunt and uncle. And their mother always had a bunch of kids so she could stay on the welfare system. She was kind of a mess. She was an alcoholic, And the youngest kid's name was Shannon, this girl. She was this little girl. She never the mother was always sleeping. The kids were taking care of her. The kids weren't allowed to go to school because they had to stay home and babysit. It was kind of like, kind of like the lifestyle that we know in the program,
Yeah.
And my daughter kind of looks like that girl, has like a glimpses. And I keep thinking, and I'm like, I don't want to give her that life that little girl had. It's like God gives you enough to compete. It's like these shots between that and her asking about me sleeping. I was like, this, excuse my language, but I was like, I'm just not doing this to this kid. And that was it,
Yeah.
And it's amazing once you get to that point that it gets easier. People talk about that getting sober. Getting sober is not nearly as hard. You can go. I don't know about you. I can twitch. I can go through anything. I'd withdraw between times usually. I mean, I can suffer through anything. It's making the decision, because then you got to be ready. You decided something. Now you got to do it. If you go back and forth, you say tomorrow never comes. You know the drill. And but when you decide, it's like,
yeah. And I know, to close out your question there, that that's exactly what it was. It was, this is it. Like, I've been bullshitting, because hey, us addicts, we're master bullshitters, especially to ourselves. I was thinking of how many mornings waking up, oh, I'm never doing that again. Right. Sure. Okay. And then later that day, you're stopping at the convenience store before you get home. It's like, come on, man. And it was a very conscious decision that then I was going to connect to the right people and kick it into overdrive. And it's made all the difference. All the difference.
What's nice is once you've done it before, there's a system, you just got to plug into it. The downside is you sometimes wonder, well, maybe it did work for me, but then you think it works for everybody. It's like gravity. Like when I used to sponsor guys, I would drop the big book and be like, listen, it works the same for you and me. It's gravity. It's a spiritual principle. Just get with it. And it would always work, for the guys that would buy in. So this time I was just like, I'm just going to buy in. In fact, sometimes Rob and I would be on a Zoom and he'd break out the big book and he'd go through something. And do you know this? Did you? I'm like, stuff I didn't see, and I've been around it for 12, 15 years.
Right. Oh yeah. He's eloquent with that dude's brain. It's so fascinating too, to see people like him and like yourself, and how we take and use the different tools in certain ways, like Dr. Rob is like that guy. I heard someone say, I think it was him that replied. It was, yeah, progress, not perfection. He's like, spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection. It's like, yeah, that's what it says. Yeah. Don't mistake the two.
It's true. And yeah, that's the, he'll quote things. He's like, do you know what the first step says of this step? And I'll say to him, like, no, you missed one thing or you missed this. He's like, you don't understand. These guys were wordsmiths. And he was just, sometimes he blows me away. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, and we don't stay on it that much, but when he pulls it out, it's huge.
Yeah. Well, the details are important. I mean, in your business, if you sign on the wrong thing or put the comma in the wrong place, it can cause an issue. Like the details are important. I was talking with a kid that at Celebrate Recovery, he when I was registering my son for college, I'm so proud. Like 15 years old and he's already getting his college courses. Yeah, he's so he's so switched on. It's pretty rad. But this young man that I go to Celebrate Recovery with, and I'm like, hey, did I see you with your mom there the other day? Yeah. Well, that's rad, dude. Yeah, I'm gonna take the course to be an electrician. I'm like, oh my God, like that's what I would have done if I didn't go into radio. Like this is such an amazing opportunity. Like, like really pay attention to this, and this is what's going on. And he's like, oh man, wow, I didn't think of all this stuff. And it's like, hey, it's in the detail. Like, realize what your abilities are and how they're gonna play into this. Like, pay attention.
That's
Pay
pretty cool.
attention. Yeah,
I didn't know you guys still celebrate recovery out there.
we do. Oh yes.
Yeah, it started out there, right? It started out there.
I don't know the history of Celebrate Recovery. I just my tattoo artist, I'm like, hey, we should hit a meeting together. And he's like, yeah, I do Celebrate Recovery. And my dad did it. And I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And ironically, it's at the church that me and my lady go to. And it was like, wow, one of my pastors is here. And I didn't know that he was in recovery. And,
Pretty cool.
yeah, it's just like, oh, these are my people. This is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, it's like my tribe,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too. Let me ask you about this because I was coaching someone that in another state and they're like, yeah, 12 steps isn't for me. And I'm like, okay, tell me why. Well, in this meeting, and I'm like, okay, notice the words you kept running together throughout our conversation. This meeting, go to a different one. And he was like, huh? I'm like, you can go to other meetings. You're not locked in there. And then he went and tried another one. He's like, yeah, there was this old timer that really kind of helped break it down. And he was like, yeah, I was an atheist. And it's like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, you're not locked in. It's like one meeting isn't like all of them. I've been to ones out of town and I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'll go back to that one. But then I've been to other ones and I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could go to that meeting again,
True. It's true. Like, there are some meetings you go and hit, because when I'm on the road for work, I'll go hit some meetings just to switch it up and do something different. I usually hit more when I'm out of town than I do in town, believe it or not. It's just,
And do you find that just helpful that when you're out of town, or you just want to connect with that sober community?
I don't know. I think I just want to feel that energy. Usually when I'm out of town on business, I'll be at a conference and there's a bunch of people getting banged up. Or, I just don't want to fall back to my old behaviors. Because for me, it doesn't necessarily have to be drugs or alcohol. It could be chasing girls. It could be, you know what I mean? Like you can do the wrong thing so many ways.
Yeah.
And that impacts, how you do one thing is how you do everything. That's what I'm a big believer in that. Like, I believe if you're gonna have professional success, first thing I tell guys is write down your goals, and then I'm going to tell you 10 things that'll take you off your goals if you do these things, and
yeah,
more often than not, it's either they start making more money, they cheat, they start a drug habit, they start gambling. I mean, I can tell them in advance, they go to a strip club. It's like you could see it coming. It's like clockwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing that you want so bad, why are you going to give it away for pleasure over joy?
So true. That's well played. I like that.
Yeah, it's all it is. Like at the end of the day, I mean, we're pleasure seeking, right? There was never. Tell me you had any joyful moment in using.
No, that's a release seeking missile, pleasure seeking, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And it's funny you brought up that quote because I posted that yesterday. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I posted it and a buddy texted me and he goes, oh man, thanks for that. I needed that reminder. And I was like, hey, guess what? Me too. I posted because I just now wanted to cut corners at work so I could get out the door and head home because I work for a nonprofit about an hour away.
Yeah.
And I went, nope, not okay.
Yeah, and it's hard sometimes. I mean, I go through that. There are times where I want to leave paperwork behind. We'll deal with it next week. Or get a client's thing processed, we'll get back to him. But then at 9 o'clock at night, I'm on the phone, like, yep, call the client, letting them know where they stand. Because if I don't do it, the next day I'm going to feel guilt and shame.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to have a lot of stress going into it. Rob got me in the habit of writing down things I'm going to do and then doing them that day. That's a very, very hard thing for me. And I've gotten a lot better at it, but because I'm very undisciplined with that stuff.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
I think that I can just keep it up in my noggin.
Yeah, I just am like, I can run and gun. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. No, it doesn't work. I used to run and gun. How well did that work out for me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I fall on my face every time.
But tell me if this is how it lands with you too, is that had I have just cut the corner at work and left, guess what? Nobody else would have known.
You would.
And how reminiscent of that is that of my addiction. I don't know how many times I drank and nobody knew. I had people that I worked with for 15 years that said, I didn't know you had a drinking problem.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a good sign though, if you think about what you just said, because you would know. And then if we get away with it once, we'll do it again. I don't know. I can say I would do it again. If I can cut a corner once and it goes well, I'm cutting that corner every time. But if I see the results of cutting it once, I'll pull back.
Yep. It's I think it's just one of those must things. Not just as people in recovery, but in life in general. I wish there was 12-step programs in high schools. Like, hey, here's a good playbook. Like, I have people, when I've done coaching, people ask me all the time, well, what's the most successful path? I said, believing in something greater than yourself and connecting with the like-minded community. The data shows you do that, you're going to be better off.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you're never going to go wrong that way.
No, it's not still a single person in a bad direction at all. So,
but it is like a playbook for life.
Yeah. It's a blueprint. It's a blueprint with flexible building.
Yeah, I like that. And it is because it's customized for different people, because not everybody has the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody can go to the same source to get power, and everybody can get the same relief.
Yeah. But I mean, really, if you break it down at the end of the day, if we start with the first step, we're obviously admitting we're powerless against something, and not that we are. I think some people have an issue with that first step. And I go, look, it's not that you are powerless. You are powerless against something you include in your life that is bringing just like, how is there anything positive around that? Like, if you're out there, sitting on a corner for 2 hours, fiending because you're waiting for somebody to drop a bag off with the cash in your pocket that you stole from your mom, like, that's disempowering decisions, pal. That's what it means.
It's funny because I've heard people say, well, I don't believe in power, so I've always thought myself as strong. I'm like, one guy said, I don't want to be a drug slave. And I'm like, slave? You're a complete slave. You get up in the morning, you think of how you can get drugs. You then go get high, and then you think of how you can get more drugs. And then you go get high, you lose your job, you don't pick up your kids on time. You sacrifice everything in your life for this one thing, and then you give it your money. And then when you talk about the guy who's late to drop off the drugs, you punch him in the face, he gets it, you say thank you, hug him, and give him the money. I'm like, hostage.
Yeah. So just let's take some of the pride out of that and dive in. And it's tough. I mean, we're in a sick society. It's a crazy world that we're dealing with right now. Unlike anything you and I dealt. Like, I think about my kids. Like, God, what as someone that struggles and still tries to do work to build a stronger self-worth and self-esteem. Like, God, if I had social media as a teenager and that one girl I thought was cute blocked me or said something bad about me, it's like, oh my God. Let alone,
I know. I think about it all the time.
Yeah. We're in a banana world, man.
And kids are cruel.
Yeah. Oh, we can be little shits.
And nowadays they get away with it. Like the parents never say the kids are wrong.
Oh, right.
I was volunteering in my old high school. I was teaching kids business class. And I said, I can teach you how to grow any business you want based on spirituality. I said, if you want to do it, I'll do. So it was a Catholic high school, my old high school. And kids are just one kid. I said to them, all you have to do not to fail this class, keep your iPads closed or off. I'm going to show you something on the board. The room was dark. This kid's face is glowing. I said, buddy, your face is lit up. Yeah, obviously you get the thing, shut it off. No, it's not on. It says, obviously on. No, it's not on. I walk over, it's on. I take it, I throw it on the floor. It's smashed, so it broke. Then I can afford a new iPad. I'll buy his father an iPad when he comes in, but I want to talk to his parents. That's where I said, you failed. So his parents get the report card. His father wasn't in his life. His uncle comes in. He says, what happened? I said, I told him 3 times. He made a joke of it in front of the kids. So I tossed his iPad on the floor. I'll buy him a new iPad. And I said, but he fails the class. And he's like, well, no, wait a second. He's like, because of you, my nephew's not going to get into a good school. I said, no, it's because your nephew's weak and ineffective. It probably starts at home. And like his jaw hit the floor. Now I haven't gone back there to that school to teach since because I'm not driving an hour there to volunteer to drive. Because the principal the next week's like, you got to change that grade, right? You can't just fail the kid. I'm like, oh, I did. It's not hard. It's the only thing you had to do is not be a punk.
Yeah.
But they get away with more.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, let's say that guy, he's wanting that internship with you or whatever it is, and you're here an important meeting like, hey, Johnny, I'm going to include you in this meeting. I'm seeing some potential, but this is one of our key clients. You can really learn a lot here. And he's sitting on his freaking iPad. What are you doing? He's out.
Yeah, fighting on the spot.
Yeah, he's out. Like in the meeting, it's not even it's a hey Johnny, let me talk to you real quick outside. Like, hey, you're done. Go ahead and pack your things and go home. And you walk back in the meeting. That's exactly how it would be.
That's as much as that's the thing. That's life. And these, I think people don't realize like how rude it is to be on the phone and talking. And I mean, I see couples out to dinner and, I think of myself, if I went out on a date, some girl was sitting on her phone the whole time, I just get up and leave. I'd throw a couple $100 on the table and be out the door.
Yeah. Yeah. My lady and I, we were in Monterey, California, got away and I grew up in that area. So I took her to my favorite breakfast brunch spot and we're sitting there and I've got this thing. I got to face the door, and and here comes in this couple, very nice looking lady, well put together, and here she is. They sit them on the other side of us, and the dude just she's trying to talk to him, and he's just sitting there watching the football game on his phone, just nodding the whole time. Yeah,
that's not a relationship,
Yeah. Yeah, and she ended up getting up when the check came, left and went outside, and it's just like, damn, man, this is a good lesson for me. Even if it wasn't the scenario, the appearance to me was like, boy, take this in. Like where we're sitting, we can see out to the ocean. We're having this phenomenal breakfast and all this stuff. Like, I'm gonna take it in. Like, we don't get away a lot. I get
that.
Yeah, the last thing I'm gonna do is pull out my phone right now.
Exactly. I mean, unless it's your kids calling some emergency, but otherwise you want to be present. I want to be present. Yeah. I spend so much of my life not present. I like being present. People are like, you don't mind that? I'm like, you kidding me? I'm great at stuff. I was checked up for far too long.
Right. Well, Ryan, we're going to jump to some random questions here in a minute, and I give you the what I call the Jerry Springer moment where you get to leave us with the final thoughts. But tell us a little bit about Cracking the Code. I didn't know that you had a podcast as well, and kind of throw some stuff out there, maybe some cool stuff. I love listening to financial podcasts and just getting that advice from people.
So I won't lie to you, very little financial advice. I wanted nothing to do with finance on this.
Cool.
Most of what it is I'll either interview drug addicts that have fallen and come back, police that work in the addiction area. One guy was the chief of police. And he actually, we met. He used to arrest me when I had an addiction problem. Now he's a client of mine, which is kind of funny. My old probation officer, who's a good friend of mine, the chief of probation from this town, who's a great guy. Like I said, a bunch of athletes. George has been on, a couple of my buddies, guys like him. And simply put, I just like to hear about comeback stories. Like yesterday, a guy I interviewed, he really have a comeback story, but the story of how he built that business to where it's at, when his friend died and he took over it, and it was a cool story. And it's a guy who was worth nothing, and now he's worth a couple $100 million. And he's humble and he's nice and he's a quality guy. And that's rare to find in my business, like guys in that spot. Usually they're pretty arrogant. But this guy, I can text him, hey, I'm having a bad day. He drops everything, calls me. It's a unique kind of guy. And yeah, people say, well, you're his top guy. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. I'm probably the number one guy putting business through. But there are other groups of 10, 20 advisors that he doesn't need my business. He values it, but he doesn't need it. I always say to clients, I don't need it, I value it. So Cracking the Code came because I was working with this upline called an IMO, and I would have advisors come up to me and say, hey, listen, is it true you are a homeless heroin addict? Yeah. And you were in jail? Yeah. Why? how are you doing this much production? Like an average advisor does 2 to 3 million a year of new premium. We do 25, 30 million. So obviously we're doing about in a month what they do in a year. Nobody wants to hear it though. Nobody wants to hear about spiritual principles, giving to charities. Nobody wants to hear about getting up early, prayer, meditation, working out. Nobody, they want me to give them a silver bullet. Well, I say this. I don't say anything that unique. I don't speak well. I don't pronounce R's. I don't wear a shirt and tie. I'm not that guy, and so I don't hide the fact that I was a drug addict. I don't hide the fact that I've been to prison. Like somebody doesn't want to be here, there's a door, and I treat people really well, but I try to be authentic in who I am. Then I realized that maybe we did have a silver bullet. Like maybe all those things I named, all the spiritual things, the discipline, maybe that is a silver bullet. And I said, let me show a few guys. So I started coaching a few guys just free and see if I could help them. And I've seen these guys are making like 100 grand, go up to two. One guy's used to be 130, he's at 180. Like, but bottom line is it was a serious jump, and I was like, Jesus, like there is something here. And I started helping guys I knew in other industries. And I said, listen, try this, try that. And all this stuff that we learned in the halls was bulletproof. We talk about the blueprint. Literally, I just helped them apply it to business and it went through the roof. So I said, I think I want to do this. I've always liked coaching. I go to the jail and volunteer at the prison around here. I like being a part of somebody else's comeback. I mean, honestly, I've already there's nothing, if I made an extra $1 million next year, it's not going to do anything more for me emotionally, or I don't have a mortgage. So I got everything I want for cars and shit. Like my kids' education's okay. So it's got to be bigger than me. Cause like I said before, I'm thinking about me, it's miserable,
Well, I find that, and I'm sure you know it too, is some very well-off people that are absolutely miserable.
Yeah, I was one. I mean, I can tell you about the day I pull up in my car. I'm in my dream car looking at my beautiful house, my dream house I built, and I got my kids inside. I'm married at the time, my dog, and I got a pool, and I'm gonna go hang out the nice heated pool. And I'm outside thinking, is this all there is? Is this really, do I have to go in? And that's when I knew that was a couple of years ago, and that's when I knew I had to change my situation at home. That's when I knew I had to change me a lot, because clearly I attracted that, and clearly I was a big part of that, having that kind of energy. It was obviously I had a role in it. We learned we have a role in everything. And so I definitely realized that the money doesn't buy happiness. Makes it easier, but it doesn't buy happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Cher that said, I've been broke and famous, and I've been rich and famous. I'll take the rich and famous as long as I'm happy, And it's like, yeah, being in a place. Like my finances are not where I want them to be. And it's been a rebuild. It's been a lot, like, divorce dilapidated me and things like that. But I'm in a space now where I have that ability to do so. And I'm finding joy in the process, even with the stresses and things like that. It's okay. It's just, like I had to buy a new car, new to me, used one, because my other one was repairs were way more than the value of the car. So it just didn't make any sense. And I was struggling with that. And my girlfriend goes like, it's okay to embrace that you've worked hard to step into something better. And I'm like, oh shit. Like it is. Like it's like a 10 times better automobile. Feels, not that my other wasn't safe, but this is much more safety features for the kids and everything, and dependability and all this. And it's like, wow, I've got to examine this. I still struggle to embrace that I am worth improving my situation.
Yeah, what we do, and I think that's why I for a while I was giving away more money than I should have. I was doing a lot of things I shouldn't, because I felt guilty that I was having success, and I felt like I don't know what I felt like. It didn't belong to me, and now I'm kind of in a good spot where I'm kind of okay with it. Like obviously I'm gonna have to. My divorce finalizes, I have to kind of serious check as well. I have a prenup, but I still have to, I can't just send somebody out packing,
Right.
So I know it's going to be a chunk, but that's all right. I look at it like that's part of life. If things don't work, you got to do what's right,
Yeah.
So with the stress of like saving again stuff, now I'm at a point where I don't put myself out there financially as much. Like I don't want to do things that cost as much. So I don't need to pick up tabs for people, because I don't need anyone with me at somewhere fancy. I can go some local dive. Like I'm back to the old me. I don't really care about the bullshit. For so long, I lived a life to try to impress other people.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do it.
All too familiar, man. I worked in rock radio. I had to be the step just below the rock star. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I'm tone deaf, and I mean, I can bang out some chords, but I'm certainly not getting up on stage with Iron Maiden or whoever. I don't know, first band that came to my head. But all right, let's. If people want to find out more about you, connect with you, what's the easiest way?
Cracking the code with ryanskinner.com, or they can even call my cell phone, 617-733-2396. I put that out there because a lot of the coaching clients call me direct.
Okay. Well, hey, I'm using it.
Appreciate it, brother.
I'm connecting with you. This is the start of a new friendship
You got to
here.
get out to Boston. You got to get your son out to Boston.
I know. Yeah, that's his aspiration. That's where he wants to be. All right, young man, you got it. All right. Boy, that's a silly. This was funny because I was going to start with if you had to work but didn't need the money, what would you do? It sounds like you're already doing it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if we lived in a communism and every job paid the same, I wish in my industry I had a little less outside stress. I didn't like my personal disagreements with people couldn't impact my career as much. But going to work, I love what I do. I do. And in addition to that, I want to do the coaching. I love coaching people. I love being a part of somebody else's success. Their families having a better life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think getting out of myself.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how when we're younger, our aspiration is to be Michael Jordan, and then we're presented with the opportunity to be Phil Jackson?
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, you never know where your role is going to be, but once you find your niche, it's pretty sweet. I use my buddy George for example. He was a drug addict out on the streets. He gets into meditation. Next thing you know, he gets sent out to Phil Jackson, and boom, he's like the whisperer to the pro. You just don't know how it's going to flow, and I think the trick is to just do your best where you are because you never know where that's going to be noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the mystery of life. Like embrace the uncertainty and the unknown. It's a good thing.
I don't like uncertainty. No.
It's hard. I struggle with that for sure. Especially when it's a financial, unknown, like, oh my God, how's this going to land? What's this going to pan out? But, yeah, it's tough. I think it's part of being able to be in the moment though, is accepting that, like not knowing how it's going to go.
Yeah, and if you're present, you don't usually think about it. When I'm thinking about that, I'm usually in the future, the past. But when I'm
Uh-huh.
right where I'm supposed to be, I'm usually not too concerned about it because I have what I need.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna need in the future, but hopefully God will give it to me when I need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. All right. If you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Shit. I mean, I don't want to know the future. Actually, when I say it, I really don't want to know it. I wouldn't mind flying. I think I'd like to fly.
As someone that travels, people always say, yeah.
Yeah, because I always think to myself, I don't want to know the future. I don't want to know what people think of me. I don't want to know the stuff I think. I usually I'd want to know like the next day's lottery winnings. I have a lot of clients that are lottery winners. I don't ever want to win the lottery. I see what it does. I'll take cancer again for winning the lottery. Literally, yeah, oh God, yeah, it's the worst you could do to somebody. From what I've seen, I've only had a handful of them, but I've seen enough to know I don't want it. I think, I don't know. I think the one superpower I'd like to do, I'd like to be able to multiply time. How's that?
That would be pretty cool.
Because like if I could be here at work doing my thing and also home with my daughter, that would be pretty badass. Because that's the two things that really matter most. And if I could get my stepdaughter, my 11-year-old, to think I'm cool again and they want to hang out, be cool too.
That's the first time anyone said that, and that I think is that's awesome. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And the idea of being able to read people's mind when people say that, don't want it. No way. Frightening.
Much.
Yeah, I already know how it is to be in my own mind, let alone somebody else's. No, thank you. I'm good. I'll pass. What's the last song that you listened to on purpose that you intentionally played?
But I listen to a lot of randoms. I have a pretty eclectic taste in music. It was either Angels on the Moon by Thriving Ivory or Eminem. Which one was it? Cinderella Man.
That's my favorite Eminem song.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff. But his older stuff's good. Anything in the last 5 years is kind of weak, but I mean, it's hard to be an angry guy when you get that kind of life. He's probably not.
Yeah, it's like, I've done the work to be sober, over a decade now, and seems to have a good relationship with his daughter now, and all these things. It's like, Yeah, I don't know. What else can I be mad about? Like, somebody say something bad about me, please.
Yeah. So, but yeah, those are definitely the last two. I don't know in which order.
What is something that people would be surprised to learn about you? Maybe that you don't share a hobby, an interest, anything.
I'm a super geek. I think people would be surprised to know, like, I love to meditate. Uh, I like to build little tents with my kids. My 4-year-old, because she just, anything kid related. Like I always say, thank God I didn't know how much I love being a dad because I would have had thousands of kids. Like at 44, I'm not gonna, probably not gonna do that again. But I mean, I love it. I mean, so I think the fact that I'm just like a big kid, I could play. I'm goofy. I tell my older daughter that we're pot bear, and somebody in our rep family was a bear, and she gets so mad. So I just I'm just a goof. I think I'm like a little kid. I always say I'm a combination of a little kid with a lot of responsibility and a big little kid with a big paycheck sometimes. I just sometimes feel like I'm in this world. I'm not equipped for this world. I feel far too immature for the spot of it.
Yeah. Oh, I miss those times being a girl dad of the tea parties and having the tiara on and all that stuff.
She's getting the dog trained to have a tea party with her. She meet this little friend. It's so great. Honestly, like, that's the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you could travel anywhere in time, but you had to stay there, where would it be and why?
Maybe when this country was first founded,
Hmm.
um, that would definitely be interesting to me. Maybe right after the Civil War. I don't know, one of those two times.
Yeah.
I think those are two really good times. You know what I mean? Like they were positive times. This country was first founded. They were like real beliefs that they believed in. Um, and then more importantly, after like slavery, it was pretty impressive time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know some people see that, hey, we're still in a shit show, but I think if you talk to individuals as opposed to paying attention to the news, which don't get me started on the business agendas through those things, um, I think the world, in a lot of ways, in our country has improved.
I think some ways, without a doubt.
Yeah,
I mean, some improvements had to come around. I think it was very necessary.
yeah,
But I think those are two times in history that would interest me a lot, because they were such drastic improvements, It was
yeah,
just think about we just got free from England the second time. You just ended slavery, which was probably the time I'd probably want to see after most. Um, I wouldn't mind. I mean, I would be intrigued to see like right after World War II. But on the flip side, I think it's just so sad that that went on so long that it would be upsetting to me to think that it went on as long as it did. Um, so
yeah. Yeah, I have a weird connection to World War II, but we won't get into that. All right, last random question here. Being a Boston guy, what's your favorite things about where you live?
I love the food.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I can just get in the car and I drive half hour, 20 minutes. I'm in the heart of Boston and I can go to all these great restaurants. I can sit, go smoke a cigar outside after I eat, and then get a cannoli or some kind of ice cream after. Or I can shoot up to the ocean and just be hanging out. I just love it. Everything's just, I don't know. I love Boston in the summer. How's that? I don't mind in the fall. I don't mind the spring. Spring's nice, but I hate the winters here. So my favorite thing is probably the accessibility to go to food, get food, and I'm really grateful for the educational stuff for my daughter with her autism. There's
Mm,
great resources here, and if they didn't have that, she would be really far behind. So super great. That's probably my number one thing.
yeah. No, you're right. I do need to come visit you one of these days. No, too many people out there not to get out
Fun.
that way. And I love history too. So,
It's
I'm
awesome.
one of those people. Yeah, it sucked. I went to Philadelphia. I actually flew out there and interviewed Bam Margera, and
Did you really?
yeah, and I
That's pretty
did,
cool.
and I didn't, it's COVID time, so Museum of History was closed. I at least got to stand in front of the Rocky statue, like as a guy that Sylvester Stallone was like a childhood hero, and still to an extent, and but everything was closed. I didn't get to see nothing.
Kobe was tough. I mean, listen, Kobe was hot emotionally, mentally. I mean, it was a tough time.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, and we lost so many people that with addiction that fell off. Hey, I did,
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, this is your Jerry Springer moment, Ryan. Anything that you would want to lend to the listener just through your experience, drop some knowledge.
I think so many people look at that past like it defines them, but for me, I think it strengthens me. I think it strengthens guys like you. The bottom is more of a springboard to the top. If you're at the bottom, there's only one place you're either going to bounce off it or you're going to fall down. And I think more often people roll over when they really could just kind of roll up and stand up. And I think the greatest gift I've gotten is realizing that like failures don't define you. They really don't. And it's probably the greatest gift I've been given is the failures and some of the stresses in my life. Stuff that 4 years ago I would have told you I was getting screwed and the world's breaking me and it wasn't right. I realize now it was just gifts.
Yeah. Ryan Skinner, thank you, man. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Remember, no outside solutions to inside problems. Keep knocking doors down.
Knocking those times, showing thoughts of rhyme.